I don't think I've heard this argument before. It's fascinating.
No. Well, to me, what I wanted to do in the book is that I wanted to address the core, which is, as I've said before many times, it's about human perception. So therefore, if it's about human perception, it's about understanding biology. It's about understanding how we do what we do.
The biology is related to the emotioning.
Correct. Yes, absolutely. There's another important point that I wanted to make in relation to emotions and sustainability, is that when our emotions move to trust, it is in that emotion that we become aware, and our perceptual behavioural abilities become expanded. As a result of that, we then start to see life and ourselves in a very different way than what we do in suppression. So, and it is there where we become systems thinkers. It's there that we become aware and we begin to reflect on our perceptions, the consequences of our actions, and it is there that we can become more responsible. I wanted to say that in relation to suppression, because we are suppressing, our perceptual behavioural abilities become inhibited, they become limited. So therefore our thinking and our way of seeing is like tunnel vision, and it becomes linear. And when it becomes like that, we literally don't see, we don't see the consequences of our actions. And this is entirely the point.
So what I'm also seeing in what you're saying that's interesting to me is that there's this personal dimension about what's my relationship to myself, what some people would call psychology. Am I depressed? Am I suppressing? A relationship to that in the larger way that the culture treats the environment and our environmental issues. I'm finding that interesting. I had another question I wanted to ask you, because I understand that you've had some experiences with cultures, non-Western cultures.
Yes, that's right.
Traditional, and you say that there you experience a different kind of different mode of perceiving than the traditional Western one, and I wonder if that could illuminate some of what you're talking about.
For sure. I was in Africa many years ago, and
what parts of Africa?
Oh, in Zimbabwe. And I went out of the city, and I went and had a look at some different outer-lying communities that are living in a traditional way. And so I explored a lot about their worldview. I explored a lot about how they live. And what I found extremely interesting is that they mostly operate in communication, in cooperation, and respect for one another. And interestingly, what I also observed is that they don't experience depression, they don't experience suicide. So I see that these are Western phenomena, and in fact, many indigenous cultures throughout the world, although they are being influenced now by Western culture, but many of them, many of these people don't live materialistically, but yet they are extremely happy, they're very calm, they're very peaceful people.
I imagine they live in a very different relation to the land.
Their way of being is very different.
I see. And they live in a different relation to the land also, I imagine.
Of course.
Well, so are you suggesting that we need to go back to those kinds of cultures in some sense?
No, because we can't go back to that, obviously. But it's an awareness. It's an awareness of that their way of being, that their emotions are different from ours. And it's, well, what are the consequences of those emotions in relation to how they relate with one another, how they perceive one another, how they relate and perceive to their environment. It's very different from the Western way of being and the Western way of perceiving. If I have just a quick moment, I would also like to mention that many of the traditional cultures also have a very deep awareness of the circularity of life. They're aware of their interconnectedness. They're aware of their interdependency. They're aware that the web of life and the environment sustains their life. So therefore, they're very deeply aware that they have to sustain it in order to sustain themselves. So they already live in this awareness, and what I want to do and what I feel deeply passionate about is making a difference and bringing this awareness and understanding into Western culture and getting this movement happening in relation to sustainability.
Well, gee, I think in your book you're really making a great start, and I'm hearing some very interesting and very unusual arguments that I haven't heard other people make, and I'm really glad to have you here for that reason. So one of the things I'm hearing you say too is that with this whole, you characterized suppression as happening on a cultural wide level in the West, and but that means that it's also being experienced individually by people. I'm wondering, does your book have some kind of dimension where it would be useful to individuals and
absolutely
getting more in touch with their emotions? Or?
Absolutely. People when they read the book, they will observe that there's a lot of stuff that is appropriate to the culture, but there's also a lot of detail that's been derived from my own experience there about how it applies personally. Absolutely. And that's both in suppression and in trust.
In
by
suppression
the way.
and in trust.
Yes.
You talk about how Western culture is founded on suppression, I earlier stated, and you've also talked about it being founded on the I rather than the we. Is that right?
Well, because in suppression we live in separation, so we perceive ourselves as isolated individuals, when in fact socially we are interdependent and interconnected. And I won't get into a lengthy explanation or description of how that occurs, because I'm aware that we're coming close to the end. But fundamentally, it's we actually exist in the we. So we coexist
Right.
in a collective, but we perceive ourselves as being isolated and removed.
Well, I think I think we are coming to the end of our time here. I'm really interested in the way in which you've related the environmental issue together to the social issues of what's it like to be in Western culture that has this relationship to the environment, and how both of these things need to shift together and can't be done one without the other. So I'm hoping to continue this conversation with you offline. And now I'm wondering, too, for our readers or viewers who would like to find out more information about your book and perhaps how to contact you.
Well, people can go to my website. The book is an electronic book, and it's been written in that way so that it doesn't have a carbon footprint in terms of distribution. It's not produced with chemicals, and it's produced without paper, unless somebody prints it, of course. So there is a contact page on the, there is a questionnaire page up on my website under the Contact Us link.
So they can find out through that website more information about the book, more information about you, and how they can acquire the book also.
Yes, that's right, yep.
Okay, that's terrific. And you've made it an e-book intentionally so that they don't have to print off copies, and it's environmentally aware to do that with the e-book.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Terrific. Okay. Well, Jane, I thank you so much. I'm sorry we've just had a short amount of time, but I have to say I've found it extremely stimulating. And you're heading back to Australia, but I hope that you come back to visit us again very soon.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
Thanks so much for being here, Jane.
Thank you.
Really a lot of
Thank you.
fun. Yeah.
Thank you.